Happy Monday, everyone. Oh my gosh, another manic Monday out there. This week, I want to focus on one of the most controversial tools ever invented, ever devised for dog training. And they're remote training collars. You know, they come in a lot of different varieties. And we'll go over more of that tomorrow as to what to look for. But they're basically, what is a remote training collar? The most common name referred to them are shock collars, but you know me. I'm very careful about labeling something because the way you label it will affect how you think about it. And we humans can't help but draw comparisons all the time to ourselves and comparisons to our animals. So of course, when you think of something that is shocking you, you're going to think of it something being plugged into an outlet. The time that you accidentally stuck a flathead screwdriver in one, or maybe your tongue in one, for God's sake. But anyway, so I'm really careful about labeling things. Remote training collars or electronic collars or shock collars, whatever you want to call it, I really don't care. At the end of the day, it's a device that was invented to touch dogs without being tethered to them. And of course, when you think of how are you going to get that thing done? We use our cell phones all the time to touch one another. I can get a phone call right now and there's some sort of vibration on it, some sort of haptic signal that's sent to me from another caller. We use electronics to communicate with one another all the time. Well, that's exactly how these collars work on communicating with other dogs, is electronically is how it gets done. Otherwise, again, how are you going to get it done? What, with a slingshot? I mean, how's it going to happen? So anyway, I want to talk to you a little bit about them today because remote training collars, you either swear by them or you'll swear at anyone who uses them. There is just no middle of the road. I kid you not, in 40 years, heck, in all the years I've known these things to be around since the early 1970s, they have garnered more attention, more emotions, more debate, more laws, more this, that, everything in comparison to anything else I think that's almost even out there, let alone just for dog training. It's really incredible. So today I want to talk to you a little bit, why is it like that? Why will you walk up to 50 people and 25 will say, oh my gosh, I love the remote training collar, and 25 will say, I hate it and I hate you for using it. So let's get past that today, and then over the next couple of days I want to talk to you about what are features on remote collars that I feel are absolutely necessary if you decide that this is a tool for you and your dog. And then if you do, then I'm going to talk about make sure how you use it properly. Because here's the deal. Regardless of what people think of remote training collars, over 1 million were sold just last year alone in the United States. Over 1 million. And this $1 million supports an $887 billion industry that's called the outdoor recreation industry, the hunting industry, pet industry. All this stuff is mixed in together, creating billions of jobs and so on and so forth. So that alone tells us that this device is being used. So let's just make sure that we're using it correctly, because it can be a tool that can help you achieve some training goals, but only if it's used correctly. So why all the angst? Why all the fuss? I mean, at the end of the day, we are electronic savvy. We use iPhones, we use iPads, we use laptop computers. We're doing a lot of web conferencing right now. We use Facebook Live. Why all the angst? And, you know, I've researched this thing inside and out, forwards and backwards. If I probably looked at one area other than canine pharmacotherapy, in which I specialize in, it's probably been the use of the remote training collar, because I'm just always curious. Why? Why the angst? Well, I think the number one reason for it is just lack of education. There's just not enough education. And there's not enough viable support supporting one side or the other. There just isn't. It's hard to pick the middle road because you don't have anything out there to give you the middle of the road. For example, studies out there. All the studies that they have holes in them. They just do, whether you like them or not. I don't care. That's not the position I'm taking over the next 4 days. I'm going to be the guy dead smack in the middle of the road giving you facts and facts only. And that's it. And here's one of the facts. The studies all have really two areas. Either A, they're guardian data, meaning they've asked dog owners or dog trainers to give them input so they can have quantitative data to use in their studies. Well, I'm sorry. The human footprint, the biasness of the human footprint will bias all animal research. All animal research. Absolutely. So we have to be very careful with that. We also have to take into account what is the skill set of that particular trainer who's giving you the data. What's the abilities of the dog owners to actually accurately give you and provide for you and to make accurate observations of what their dog does? Do they know the difference between a natural behavior and a behavior that's not natural? Can they tell the difference between a yelp? Can they tell the difference between a whine? Again, it's just full of holes because there's no standard out there. You're using people. And people come with their own judgment and their own skill sets for observation and so on and so forth. Then there's physiological data. Okay, well, that's got holes in it as well, unfortunately. I wish it was a little bit more accurate. But the stress response, when you want to measure glucocorticoids and resting blood pressure and things like that, and cortisol in animals, to determine if they are stressed, to determine if they are undergoing pain, you have to take into account that the stress response is absolutely necessary, not just for the rabbit to get away from a wolf, but for the wolf to catch the rabbit. In other words, if you're a dog and you're running because you're chasing a ball, your stress response is up. If you want to work out, exercise, you have to mobilize your stress response. If you want to mate, if you want to do anything exciting, your stress response is mobilized. So again, measuring the effects of the stress response in relation to using any sort of training tool is going to be very difficult and not very accurate at the end of the day. So that's one of the reasons why this is a problem, because everyone keeps looking for studies. And even studies by themselves, most of them are controlled, meaning you controlled everything. But the problem is, you didn't. And there we go. So there's no study supporting one side of the highway or the other side of the highway. Not accurately at least. And then there's also contrasting results. Some people use them and wow, they get great results. Others get horrible results. So they are going to be ones that are going to go out and say, oh my God, never use this tool. I got horrible results. But then the people who got great results are going to say, well, you just don't know what you're talking about. So it's a very emotional war, so to speak, and it's really frustrating. Another thing that can contribute to it is the other day I talked to you about the book, Crucial Conversations. And in the book, we have this going on. So because there's a lack of education when it comes to remote training collars, there's not enough viable information out there. You, as a casual dog owner, observe someone walking their dog down a sidewalk. Suddenly the dog yelps. So that's what you see and that's what you hear. So the dog yelps, okay, or makes a sound that seems like a yelp. So of course you tell yourself a story. Well, that must be pain, because if I were to yelp as a human, drawing the comparison between the two, which is not a fruitful approach, between human emotions and animal emotions, but nevertheless you do it anyway. So therefore, I feel like a comparable signal between humans would be a yelp would mean pain to me. So that's the story that you tell yourself. And then you go back to this and notice that the dog is wearing a remote collar. So now, here we go. Now the remote collar caused the yelp, which you know is pain, because that's the story you're telling yourself, which then causes you to be very angry. And because you're very angry, you act out and possibly yell at the dog owner and then go write all the stuff that you can against it. So this is one of the problems that we have when it could have been when you're doing proper studies of behavior. There's so many things you must do. Number one, after any behavior occurs in which there's a question mark, you must consider, one, what are the underlying mechanisms involved in that behavior? Taking into account natural states, affective states, you name it. What are the underlying mechanisms? What is the machinery that created that behavior? And then you have to consider, how does the behavior develop? Because it does. Behaviors develop given certain reinforcers, certain cause and effect, so on and so forth. And then you have to consider, what is the survival value of that behavior? Because again, I've told you before, animals learn what they need to learn to survive first and foremost before anything else. So those three have to be taken into account right off the bat. Then, if there's still a question mark, then that leads you to a hypothesis, or many of them. And a hypothesis is really nothing more than a logical guess or logical guesses. So again, without knowing everything, you're guessing. And if you want to run a hypothesis properly, you have to test it. Test it. So I think what happened is that this guy used a remote training collar, caused the animal pain, which then therefore caused it to yelp. And that's what happened. Well, you've got to test that. Test it. Meaning, walk the dog in the same conditions at about the same time of the day and give the dog other inputs, like maybe a leash correction. Maybe he stepped on the paw. Maybe the dog was just super excited because it saw another dog down the hill chasing a ball. Did you know captains, when he gets excited, like to go for a walk or to chase a ball, if you didn't know my dog and you had not run through proper testing of all the various hypotheses, you would think he was in pain. You really would. So that's why we do this. We run everything through. We sift it out. And if you do proper testing, it will support or not support your hypothesis. But unfortunately, remote training collars, at least in my research, hasn't been afforded that same level of due diligence that other areas of animal studies have been afforded. I don't know why. I just haven't found it. So again, I think this is one of the reasons why. We're simply going by feedback from other owners. We're going by from our own personal feelings. I don't know. I just know this, that I believe with proper education, then people can at least make an educated decision regarding whether the device is proper for their situation or not, let alone simply not trying it because they're being yelled at or trying it because they're ignorant. So that's why I'm going to spend the next couple of days trying to clear all this stuff up. But real quickly, let me just go over some pros and cons. Again, taking how you feel about them out of the picture. Pros, it's an untethered signal. It allows you to touch the dog, to give the dog a haptic signal at a distance. And I'm here to tell you, when you're working with a deaf dog, God, that's incredible. That's incredible. How do you get a deaf dog to come to you if you can't get its attention? So the deaf dog is looking at something else. You're going, hey, you, over here, over here. Oh, they don't hear you. They don't see this because their focus is on something else. So, hey, oh, now you're doing this. So just like a silent cell phone, you can touch the dog at a distance. So that's one of the pros. It also provides a stereotypic signal, a haptic signal. Dogs learn with their eyes first, touch second. And this becomes stereotype, meaning the device doesn't care who presses the button. So it can be the 14-year-old or the 84-year-old. It doesn't matter. What the dog feels is the exact same, depending upon if it's on the exact same setting. So that's cool because in canine communication, we talked about semiotics. You have a signal, an interpretant, and a referent, and they have to be stereotyped, the signal and the response. So this is a long ways in that direction. For some people, they can be power equalizers. Yeah, they do have the ability to correct. They have the ability to touch, communicate, draw your awareness, and correct you. And for some people that the leash won't get it done, they'll admit, I own too much dog. He's too big. He's too strong. He's yanking me everywhere. And even with the best skill set, I'm 84. I can't get it done, but I don't want to give up my dog. Well, I'll certainly equal the playing field a little bit. And then lastly, it allows for what's called natural pairing. So I've shown videos before of a dog that climbed up on a gas stove and he set the house on fire. Well, reason being is that the animal had learned. When the owner said, no, get off, he did. He got corrected. But when the owner wasn't home, he never got corrected. So he learned. I hear the garage door open, get off. But when the garage door closes and the car drives away, get on. So many animals learn this with many, many things. Well, this device allows you to pair that stove with what it feels. You can drive off. You can spy on your dog. You see dog get on a stove, you press button. Dog goes, oh, what the heck? Stove just got me. Whew, whew, that was bad. Absolutely. Therefore, I won't get on the stove again because the stove is dangerous, not the human. So those are pros. What are the cons? Number one, it's not idiot proof. And I tell you what, that's what a lot of people do. They grab these things, they buy them, and they think they just purchased a remote control for their dog. Here we go. Dog doesn't come to me. I'll just press this button. It'll come right to me. No way. And I'll explain why over the next couple of days that will not happen. And that's what causes the fear in animals. That's what causes them to avoid you. That's what will give this device a very bad name and cause people to swear at you, not swear by them, is the lack of education and the lack of using the tool correctly. I mean, I could hurtle a cell phone at you and bonk it off your head. That would be me using the cell phone incorrectly. So there's a consequence of using devices incorrectly, no matter what it is. Then there's a limited power supply. Yeah, you may be relying on this thing. Your dog's running around out in the field and you're thinking, I got absolute control over my dog. Well, maybe not. Yeah, so you got to keep your eye on that as well. That's a leash that suddenly will just disappear. And then, because it has to touch the skin, metal on skin under the right conditions can create what's known as pressure necrosis. And that's when metal rubs a hole in your body armor, called your epidermis. As soon as you crack that thing, you invite the rest of the world into your body. And that's going to create an infection. And that's going to create hot spots, which unfortunately have been misinterpreted as burn marks. And because they're misinterpreted as burn marks, that feeds into the I will swear at you part. Again, it's about education. Some animals are allergic to titanium. Others are allergic to beryllium. Others are allergic to stainless steel. And that can create a sore spot. But the device at the end of the day is controlled by a battery that you would use to control your watch. It's not plugged into an outlet. So difficult to create a burn, so to speak. So again, it just adds into what story are you telling yourself? Listen to yourself. What story do you tell yourself? Have you run it through the hypothesis testing that it deserves? Well, we are. So we're going to do that this week. I just wanted to kind of get this whole thing rolling. They're out there. 1 million of them are sold every year alone in this country. Yes, they have been banned in some countries. They definitely have. But when you break that down and you look at their legislation, a lot of that is really, wow, you wouldn't find a human guilty under those circumstances. I mean, it's just, we need education. And my job, as I promise you, is to lower your blood pressure, make your heart go pitter-patter, to teach you things that will help you keep your dog, not rehome it, not send it to the shelter. Have your own personal therapy dog. So, like I was telling someone this morning, The means justifies the end. Any tool you use is humanly abusable. A leash is, a compression collar, a prong collar, a buckle collar, a no-pull harness, a halty. All of these are humanly abusable. And remote collars definitely are. So we just got to make sure that people don't do it out of ignorance. Yeah, you got mean people. They're out there. We're going to just put them off to the side. We're going to talk about the people who simply just don't understand the science behind it. They don't know this thing called natural pairing, intended pairing. They don't understand timing. They don't understand the process that you have to go through so the animal understands what's going on with it. That's my job. And that's what I'm going to be giving you over the next several days to make sure so that if you decide that this is the device for you, then use it right. Absolutely. If you decide it's not for you, well, now you get to make an educated decision as to why you're choosing not to. And at the end of the day, your dog will appreciate that decision. You'll appreciate the decision one way or the other. But at least we won't be telling ourselves stories. We will do it. If I get the darn piece of paper over here. Welcome to live, baby. There you go. We're going to retrace your steps and make sure that if you use one, you use it right. Okay, tomorrow, guys, I'm going to go over the different devices. I'm going to go over features that you need to make sure that if you choose to use a remote training collar with your dog, you've got to have these certain features. Otherwise, I promise you, you're just not going to get it done right. So I want to make sure that you shop for something that has those features. And then after that, we're going to get right into how do you use the right device, with the one with the right features on it. And we'll get you where you need to be. Okay, if you found this beneficial, all this information I had you up here on this board, share it with someone. And if not, don't. Okay, just playing around with you guys. If you have any questions on this, send them my way, tamingthewild.com with Bryan on the front of it, or just drop it down there on the old Facebook thread, and I'll be glad to answer as soon as I can. See you tomorrow.